Welcome to an ISEO 6-pin dimple lock that was sent to me by APACHE-LOCKSPORT. So buddy, thank you very much for the lock. But before I pick this lock, I want to tell you my thoughts about dimple locks. So what makes them different to regular pin tumblers, and I will also tell you my considerations about how I approach to pick these guys. So first of all, when we compare a dimple lock to a regular pin tumbler, we can see that in both locks the pins are oriented vertically. No matter if you live in a country where the locks are mounted indoors like this or like that. In both of these type of locks, the pins are oriented vertically. We have key pins, we have drivers, and we have springs. So the locking mechanism itself is the same. But the most obvious difference, of course, is the keyway. In a regular pin tumbler, the keyway goes vertically and horizontally in a dimple lock. And of course, this has implications to the key. So here are both type of keys. That's a regular pin tumbler key with a normal bidding. This key goes only in one way. But for dimple locks, you usually have reversible keys. So keys where the bidding is the same on both sides. So that's very handy that you can insert the key like this or like that. And the bidding are actually holes that are drilled in the key. And this has, of course, also implications to picking. So when we have some free space on top of the key pin and can use a regular hook to pick the pins with a motion which is goes along the axis of the pin. This is different to a dimple lock where there is no space on top of the pins. So you cannot use your pick and pick straight from the top to push down the pins. You have to go sideways, where is a little bit of space left here. You have to insert your pick at the side, and with a turning motion you have to push down the pins. And for this job, specialized tools exist, which are called dimple flags or dimple picks. So flags because they have a tip which looks a little bit like a flag. When we compare them to a normal hook, you can see the differences. With a hook you have a shaft of a certain width or height. This is different to dimple picks, which have a shaft that is almost round. In this case it has a rectangular shape, but it's almost round, and the tip of the pick is a flag that allows a turning motion in order to pick the pins. Goes in at the side, and with a turning motion you can push down the pins. And it's very important that you have a good guide for your pick. So here the end of the keyway is just very appropriate, because you can see when you slide in the pick, the tip of the flag is just perfectly centered on the tip of the pin. Maybe I adjust the lighting a little bit, but you can see it better. And when you turn the pick, you can see how nicely I can push down the pin. There is a bit of warding here at the bottom, so the pin row is actually within a slot, so you can say. And it's possible to pick the pin with this pick, because the pick can go up in the keyway, and so you can push it down all the way it needs. And with this lock you can see we have two pin stacks with very, very short key pins at 1 and 3. But there are also curved flags available. Here you can see two spokes. Curved flags, a left and a right flag, depending from which side of the pin row you want to access the pins. And these curved flags are very nice when you want to work around these spikes. So you can see when I use this pick, it's very nicely accessible, the pin, and you can push it down all the way it needs. So the fact that we apply a turning motion in order to push down the pins has implications to the tensioning. So assume you want to pick a spool, or maybe I start with a regular pin tumbler first. Here the turning motion is either clockwise or counterclockwise, and the picking direction or picking motion direction is perpendicular to it. So tensioning and picking are not interfering, but this is different to a dimple lock. Here you tension the lock again either clockwise or counterclockwise, but you also pick in one of both directions. Let's assume you want to pick the lock from the left side, so your picking direction is clockwise. And now assume you also tension the lock clockwise. That means you are picking in the same direction. So when it now comes to picking of spools, you would try to set a spool and you would like to let off the tension a little bit, but it's not possible because even when you stop tensioning the lock with your tension wrench, you are still picking in the same direction as you have tensioned the lock before. So you're actually increasing tensioning the lock while trying to set the spool. So you can imagine that this makes it really hard to set the spools. And there are two ways to overcome this problem. First possibility is to tension the lock in the opposite direction. So that means when it comes to picking of spools, I can decrease the force on the tension wrench and nicely set the spool, because it goes in the opposite direction as I tension the lock, and so it's I can balance between tensioning the lock and picking the spool. But now when I want to tension the lock in the same direction as I pick it, I have to apply precise control to the plug, and therefore special tension wrenches exist that are available in various shapes and widths. So this one fits nice and tight in the keyway and gives precise control over the plug. So then I can apply tension to the lock in the same direction as I pick the pins, and when it comes to picking of spools, I can control the turning motion with a tension wrench also in the opposite direction, opposite to the turning motion of the pick, and get the spool set, and then tension it back again in the initial direction. Alright, having said all this, let me clamp the lock in a vise and try to pick it. Alright, ISEO is clamped in a vise. Here is the key with the bitting. Again. Works. And it's locked up. I've picked this lock before a couple of times, and sometimes it's a really tricky pick with the spools connected to the very short key pins. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I start with a pick that I showed you before. Apply tension, and 1 is springy, 2 is binding. Got it, and dropped into a nice false set. 3 is giving feedback. Maybe I got it, but lost the false set. 2 is binding again. Set 2, and the false set returned. Let's see. 1 is giving feedback. It's also a spool. And with some tension on the core, it's very hard to set these pins all the way down. So maybe I could set 1, and 2 is binding again. It came back. Okay, got it, but not yet open. So 3 is giving feedback again. think we got it. Very nice. So let's see what's holding us up. I use a larger flag. Maybe I can reach further down. Getting feedback again here. Okay, 2 is binding again, and it's open. Whew! Finally, this was not my first attempt on camera. Okay. Alright, so let's gut it. You can see that 5 and 6 are actually almost on the shear line. If you apply a little bit of pressure on the plug, they set automatically. So 1, 2. Alright, that's the pinning of the ISEO dimple lock from APACHE-LOCKSPORT. Very nice shiny pins, key pins and drivers. We have spools in 1, 3, 4 and 6. 6 is not effective, but the other spools are very nicely effective, so we can check 4. Even 4 is, well, it's not really effective, so it more, yeah, it turns a little bit, but not too much. Alright, so that was some thoughts about how to pick dimple locks and picking of the ISEO 6-pin dimple lock. It's the R6. So thank you very much for watching, happy picking, cheers and bye bye. Quick addendum, which is actually a question. Here is the plug from the ISEO lock that I just picked, and you can see the chambers in the plug, and they are very small. And that's always the case when I got dimple locks, that I think that the chambers are really small and they have really small pins. And indeed, if you compare the plug of the ISEO dimple lock with a plug from a pin tumbler, from a regular pin tumbler, and this is a plug from a Basel lock, and if you hold it next to each other, you can see the big difference in the diameter. And I really don't know why this is the case, why dimple locks always have very small pins. Also, if you have the pins next to each other, you can see the big difference in diameter. This left pin is from the ISEO dimple lock, and the right key pin is from the Basel. And if you check the diameters, you can also see the big difference here. So if anyone knows why this is the case, why dimple locks always have these very small pins, please let me know. Alright, that's it. Thanks and bye bye.